The galaxy was wide and endless, filled with millions of stars, planets, and strange life forms. Empires rose and fell, wars raged, and alliances were broken. But through all of it, there was one name that made every soldier, every ruler, and every fleet tremble. They whispered about her in silence, afraid even to speak too loud. She was the alien woman, the one who carried power so great that whole fleets had been turned to dust in her presence. Legends said she could shatter a warship with only her mind. Some claimed she could command black holes, bending space itself to her will. Children across worlds were told scary stories about her, so they would not wander into danger. Generals used her name as a warning to keep their troops in line. She was not just feared, she was the nightmare of the galaxy. But behind those stories was a truth no one dared to admit. The alien woman was alone. She walked the stars without family, without friends, hunted by those who wanted her dead and cursed by those who wanted her chained. Her power had made her untouchable, but it had also made her a prisoner of fear. No one dared to stand close, no one dared to speak to her. To most of the galaxy, she was less a person and more a weapon. On a ruined battlefield, littered with the burning remains of ships and broken machines, she stood silently. The sky above was red with fire. The ground cracked from the shock of war. Bodies of both humans and aliens lay scattered, the price of another useless conflict. And there she was, tall, fierce, her eyes glowing with power, her hair flowing like dark fire in the smoke-filled wind. Everyone who survived fled at the sight of her, terrified she would unleash her power again. But one human did not run. He was a soldier, his armor broken, his body bleeding, his hands shaking as he pulled himself from the wreckage. He looked up and saw her standing among the flames. Any normal man would have crawled away, praying not to be noticed. But he did not. Something in her face stopped him. Yes, there was power. Yes, there was danger, but there was also something else, a look of loneliness, a quiet sadness hidden beneath the terror she inspired. The woman turned, her glowing eyes falling on him. The ground seemed to tremble under her gaze. Her voice, when she spoke, was like thunder and whisper at the same time. "Human," she said, "why do you not run, like the others?" The soldier coughed, blood on his lips, but he forced himself to stand. "I have run enough," he said, his voice weak but steady. "If this is my end, then so be it." The woman tilted her head, surprised. No one had ever dared to speak to her like that. Most begged, most cried, most cursed her before they died. But this human stood, fragile, broken, and still unafraid. "Do you not fear me?" she asked, her eyes burning brighter. The soldier looked straight at her. "I should," he said, "but I don't." The silence between them stretched, filled only by the sound of fire and distant explosions. It was impossible, unthinkable, yet in that moment something changed. For the first time in years, she did not feel like a monster. She felt seen. The galaxy feared her name. Entire fleets hunted her, but this one human dared to stand before her without trembling. He had no reason, no power, no hope, only courage. And in that courage, she saw something she had forgotten long ago. Hope. She stepped closer, her power humming in the air like a storm ready to break. The soldier did not move. Even if his legs were weak, even if his wounds were killing him, he refused to step back. He stood his ground. The woman's eyes narrowed, testing him, searching for weakness. But what she found instead was something she had never seen before. Not fear, not hatred, not worship, only trust. For the galaxy, she would always be the destroyer, the weapon, the curse. But for this one human, in this single moment on a broken battlefield, she was something else. She was simply a woman, and it was enough to shake her heart. The night sky above cracked with the arrival of new fleets, shadows of ships stretching across the burning clouds. The war was not over, the hunt was not done. Soon, soldiers would come again, not to fight the battle, but to capture her. Yet for the first time in her long life, she was not alone. One human stood beside her, and that single act of courage would change everything the galaxy believed. The battlefield was silent now, smoke rising into the endless sky. The alien woman stood tall among the ruins, her glowing eyes fixed on the wounded soldier who refused to run. Her power pulsed like lightning in the air, a storm waiting to strike, yet the human did not move. He was weak, broken, and covered in blood, but his gaze never left hers. She stepped closer, her every movement echoing with strength that could break planets. The ground cracked softly under her feet, and the air grew heavier. "Do you understand what you are doing?" she asked, her voice deep, filled with both warning and disbelief. "No one stands near me and lives." The soldier's chest rose and fell as he struggled to breathe. "I understand," he said, his voice steady even as his body trembled. "But I will not crawl away like a coward." Her eyes narrowed, glowing brighter as she searched his face. There was no armor left to protect him, no weapon in his hands, nothing to shield him from her power. Still, he stood, as if the idea of fear did not exist inside him. It was something she had never seen before, not in all her years of being hunted, cursed, and feared. "You are a fool," she said, her tone sharper now, though a strange curiosity hid beneath her words. "The galaxy calls me a destroyer, a curse that cannot be stopped. If you stand beside me, they will hunt you too." The soldier let out a broken laugh, the sound rough from his wounds. "They already hunt me," he whispered, his voice almost lost in the crackle of fire. "My life is nothing to them, but maybe here, standing before you, I can finally choose something for myself." Her expression shifted, the storm inside her eyes flickering with something softer for a moment. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Every ruler had demanded her death. Every general had called her a monster. Every survivor had cursed her name. But this fragile human dared to speak with honesty, as if she was more than the weapon the galaxy feared. "Why?" she asked, her voice quieter now, almost uncertain. "Why do you not fear me?" The soldier looked at her, his lips trembling as he held back the pain in his body. "I see power in you, yes," he said, "but I also see pain, loneliness, and chains. You are not fear. You are someone who has been made into fear." Her heart tightened at his words, though she did not show it. It had been centuries since anyone had looked at her as a person and not as a weapon. And now here was a human, standing at death's door, daring to see her truth. The galaxy called her dangerous, cursed, untouchable. But this soldier spoke to her as if she were simply alive. For a long moment, neither moved. The fire burned around them, the air heavy with smoke and ash. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly, and the power in the air softened. She turned her head, looking at the wreckage, the broken ships, the shattered machines. "This is what happens when I am near," she whispered, almost to herself. "This is what they fear, what they hate, and what I cannot escape." The soldier limped forward, each step slow and heavy, but determined. When he stopped, he stood only a few feet away from her, close enough to feel the heat of her presence. "I don't see hate," he said, his voice calm. "I see a chance for something different, but only if you let it happen." Her eyes snapped back to him, fierce and sharp. "You dare to tell me what I should do?" she asked, her voice rising with sudden anger. "Do you think your words can undo centuries of fear, centuries of blood spilled in my name?" The soldier shook his head. "No," he admitted, "my words cannot undo the past, but maybe they can begin something new." The air grew still, her power circling her like invisible flames. For the first time, she could not decide what to do. She had destroyed fleets without hesitation, silenced worlds with her fury. But now, standing before this single human, her heart trembled in ways it had not in 1,000 years. She raised her hand, energy crackling between her fingers. The soldier did not flinch. He looked at her with steady eyes, ready for death, yet unwilling to step back. In his silence, in his courage, she found a reflection she did not expect. a reflection of what she once was, before the galaxy had turned her into a weapon. Her hand dropped slowly, the power fading away into nothing. She looked at him, and for the first time in a very long time, she chose not to kill. Instead, she spoke words she never thought she would say. "Stay if you dare, human," she whispered, her voice softer now. "But understand this. If you stand beside me, your life will never belong to you again." The soldier's lips curved into the faintest smile, though his body ached with pain. "Then it is not a life wasted," he replied. "I would rather stand here, with you, than live as another shadow in their war." Her chest rose with a deep breath, her glowing eyes dimming until they were almost human. For the first time, she felt the chains around her heart weaken. The galaxy had given her nothing but fear, but this one human had given her a choice. And choices, she realized, were more powerful than fear. The sky above roared with the engines of incoming fleets, the horizon filling with shadows of new warships. The hunt was not over, their time was running short. But in the ruins of that battlefield, an impossible bond had been born, a bond that would one day shake the galaxy itself. The human stood close to her, weak and wounded, but steady. The alien woman, feared across the stars, looked at him with eyes that no longer blazed with endless fire, but glimmered with quiet conflict. For the first time in centuries, someone dared to see her not as a weapon, not as a curse, but as a living being, and yet deep inside her heart, she knew the truth could not stay hidden forever. "Do you know why they fear me?" she asked at last, her voice low like thunder rolling through clouds. The soldier, still bleeding and broken, shook his head slowly. "I only know the stories," he said, "but stories are never the whole truth." Her gaze turned toward the burning sky, her expression tightening. "They call me a destroyer because once, long ago, she whispered, there was a war greater than anything the galaxy remembers now. They came for my people, they slaughtered us, and when I rose in fury, I did not stop." The soldier listened silently, the crackle of distant fire the only sound between her words. "I broke their fleets, I burned their worlds, I crushed their armies," she continued, her voice trembling for the first time. "And when the war ended, nothing remained, not of them, not of us, not even of me. Only fear remained, and it spread like poison." Her hands clenched, sparks of energy flickering in the air around her. Her eyes glowed again, but not with anger, with memory. "They chained me after that," she whispered, lifting her arms slowly, showing faint scars that shimmered across her skin. "Not chains of metal, but chains of power, forged by my own people before they were gone. They believed my rage would one day consume the galaxy, so they bound me, cursed me, and left me to wander. I cannot escape what they made of me." The soldier took a breath, his voice weak but clear. "You are not chains," he said. "You are more than what they forced you to become." Her head snapped toward him, her glowing eyes narrowing. "You dare to say that?" she asked sharply. "When you see the truth with your own eyes, these ruins are my shadow, this fire is my breath. Every step I take leaves destruction. How can you look at me and not see a monster?" The soldier did not step back, though his legs shook with weakness. "Because I see more," he answered. "I see the sorrow in your voice, the pain in your scars, the weight of what they forced you to carry. A monster feels nothing, but you carry everything." Her breath caught, though she tried to hide it. No one had ever spoken to her like this. The galaxy shouted only one story, that she was terror itself, a nightmare wrapped in flesh. But this human's words cracked through the wall she had built around her soul. For a moment, she felt like the chains that bound her heart loosened. "You do not understand," she said, her voice softer now. "The galaxy will never forgive me. Every fleet that hunts me does so because they believe my very existence is danger. And perhaps they are right." The soldier stepped closer, his boots dragging against the broken ground. His body screamed with pain, but he did not stop. When he stood only an arm's length from her, he said, "Then let them believe. Let them call you danger, curse, weapon. What matters is what you choose to be, not what they name you. Her eyes widened, glowing bright, as if his words were fire striking through her chest. Choice. The word echoed inside her, louder than the roar of battle, stronger than the chains that bound her spirit. Choice was something she had not believed she still had. But this fragile soldier, standing before her like a broken shadow, dared to remind her of it. The sound of engines roared above them, warships cutting through the smoke-filled sky. The galaxy was already coming, faster than either of them expected. She looked at him once more, her voice carrying both warning and challenge. If you stay beside me, human, the galaxy will curse your name as it cursed mine. He smiled faintly, though his lips were pale from blood loss. Then let them, he said. I'd rather stand cursed with you than live silent without you. Her chest tightened with something she had not felt in centuries. It was not rage, not fear, not sorrow. It was something else, something fragile yet powerful. Trust. The chains of power still burned within her, but for the first time, she felt they might not hold forever. Not while this human stood at her side. Not while he dared to see her as more than a weapon. The galaxy would come with fleets, with fire, with chains. But as long as one human stood beside her, she was not bound by fear alone. And in that moment, the alien woman understood a truth far greater than her curse. Power was not her prison, loneliness was, and he had broken it with nothing but courage. The sky trembled as the warships appeared above the ruined battlefield. Dark silhouettes of steel filled the clouds, engines roaring like thunder across the broken land. Every ship carried weapons powerful enough to erase entire cities, and all of them pointed toward one figure, the alien woman. Her glowing eyes lifted to the sky, calm yet unshaken. She had faced fleets before. She had burned them, destroyed them, and left nothing but silence behind. But this time, she was not alone. The soldier, weak and wounded, limped to her side, his steps heavy but unyielding. He looked at the fleets above, knowing that to them he was less than an insect. Yet still he stood, his back straight, his will stronger than his body. The woman glanced at him, her voice a low whisper. You should run. Human, this is not your fight. He shook his head, his lips curled in a faint smile. I'm already in this fight, he said. The moment I stood beside you, I chose. The ships above began to broadcast across the battlefield, voices of commanders echoing through the smoke-filled air. This is the High Fleet of the Dominion. Alien woman, surrender at once. Lay down your power, or face complete annihilation. The ground shook as weapons charged, glowing with deadly light. The soldier could feel the heat of their energy, even from below. He knew one strike would erase them both, yet his heart did not falter. He raised his voice, calling out with a strength that surprised even himself. You fear her power, he shouted at the sky. But it is not power that destroys you. It is your fear itself. The commanders laughed from above, voices sharp and filled with scorn. A human dares to speak for the destroyer. One voice mocked. She has slaughtered billions. She is nothing but a curse upon the stars, and you choose to defend her. You are already dead. The woman turned to him, her expression unreadable. Her eyes glowed faintly, her voice calm. They are not wrong. I have destroyed much. If you stand with me, they will burn you as they burn me. The soldier's answer was simple. Then let them burn. He said firmly, my life means nothing if I abandon what I believe in. For a moment, silence stretched between them, even as the fleets above prepared their weapons. Her gaze softened, a faint shadow of surprise in her eyes. No one had ever stood for her, not once, not ever. She was the terror of the galaxy, the curse wrapped in flesh. Yet this human stood unshaken, declaring his loyalty not to her power, but to her. The commanders grew impatient, their voices sharper. Last warning, alien woman, surrender or perish. The galaxy will not forgive you again. The woman raised her hands slowly, energy rippling around her like a storm. The soldier braced himself, not in fear of her, but in fear of what she might choose. Would she unleash her fury again and burn the fleets, proving them all right? Or would she try something no one expected? Her voice rang across the battlefield, louder than the engines above. "You fear me because of what I once was," she said. "You chain me because of what I might become. But I am not your fear, not your curse, not your weapon." The fleets laughed again, dismissing her words as lies. But the soldier stepped forward, his voice joining hers. "She is not alone now," he shouted, "and as long as I stand, I will prove it." A beam of energy fired from the sky, a blazing strike meant to erase them both. The soldier closed his eyes, expecting death, but it never came. When he opened them again, he saw her standing tall, her hands stretched wide. The energy that should have burned them was twisting, bending, harmlessly breaking apart before it touched the ground. The fleets panicked, their voices filled with disbelief. She held it back, one shouted. She did not destroy, she controlled it. The soldier looked at her, amazement in his eyes. "You chose not to kill," he whispered. She nodded slowly, her voice soft. "Because of you," she said. "You reminded me of choice." Above them, the fleets hesitated, shaken by what they had seen. They had come expecting destruction, but instead they saw restraint. The alien woman, feared as the destroyer of worlds, had spared them. And standing at her side was a single human who refused to bow. For the first time, the galaxy would see a different story. Not a nightmare, not a curse, but a woman who could change. And a soldier who dared to believe in her. The battle was far from over. The fleets would not stop. The galaxy would not forgive. But something had shifted, something unstoppable. One human had made a stand, and by doing so, he had forced the galaxy to see her not as fear, but as possibility. The air burned with tension as the fleets above circled like vultures over a dying world. Thousands of cannons aimed downward, ready to erase everything with a single command. And yet below, in the ruins of smoke and broken steel, two figures stood side by side. The alien woman, feared as the destroyer of worlds, and the human soldier who refused to run. The fleets had seen her unleash her strength before. They had seen her destroy without mercy. But what they witnessed now left them uncertain. She had turned aside their strike, bending the beam of death into harmless sparks. Not destruction, but control. It was a choice she had never made before. The commanders' voices rang across the sky, their tones sharp with anger and disbelief. "Do not be deceived. She cannot be trusted. She will bring death, as she always has. In this now, fire everything." The soldier stepped forward, his voice carrying against the storm. "Look at her," he shouted. "She had the chance to kill you all, but she chose not to. She is not the curse you fear. She is more than the chains you put on her name." The fleets did not listen. Their weapons glowed brighter, charging again. The woman lifted her hands, the storm of energy building within her. But this time, there was no rage in her movements, no fire of destruction in her eyes. Instead, there was calm, steady, unshaken. She was not a beast of chaos. She was choosing. The soldier stood at her side, his armor cracked, his body broken, but his will unbreakable. "You are not alone," he whispered to her. "Show them. Show the galaxy you are not their monster." Her heart trembled at his words. For centuries, she had been nothing but what others believed: destroyer, curse, weapon. But in this human's eyes, she saw something she had long forgotten: hope. The sky erupted as the fleets opened fire, thousands of beams of light falling like a storm of death. The battlefield shook, the air cracked with thunder, the ground split under the force. The soldier closed his eyes, expecting fire, but once again it never came. When he opened them, he saw her, standing tall, her arms stretched wide. Every beam bent away, twisted harmlessly into the sky, or melted into dust before touching the earth. The fleets roared in disbelief. "She is controlling it," One commander shouted. Impossible. No power can resist that much fire. But it was true. She was not destroying. She was redirecting, turning death into nothing. And the soldiers saw the truth in her glowing eyes. She was fighting not against the fleets, but against herself. Every strike that came down was a test of her will. Every blast bent away because she chose not to kill. Her body shook with strain, her voice breaking as she spoke. They gave me chains, told me I was nothing but fear. But fear is not my master anymore. The soldier stepped closer, placing his hand against her arm, though the energy around her burned like fire. You are not fear, he said firmly. You are choice, you are hope, and I will stand with you until the end. Her eyes softened, the storm around her calming even as more weapons fired. For the first time, she smiled. Not the cruel smile of a destroyer, but the quiet smile of someone free. You gave me this, she whispered, her voice trembling. You gave me the chance to be more. The fleets above began to falter, hesitation spreading through their ranks. They had come to fight a monster, but what they saw was something different. A woman who chose mercy, and a human who chose her. Together, they stood against the storm. The commanders shouted for more fire, desperate to prove their fear right. But the crews hesitated, their hands trembling. How could they obey when the very proof of their orders crumbled before their eyes? She was no longer the destroyer. She was proof that power could bend, not break, and that frightened them more than any weapon. The soldier raised his voice again, shouting to the sky. Fear made her a monster, but courage can make her something greater. If one human can stand beside her, why can't the galaxy? The words echoed across the battlefield, carried by the smoke and fire. No one answered, but silence fell heavier than weapons. For the first time, the fleets stopped firing, their hesitation stronger than their fear. The alien woman lowered her hands slowly, her power fading into the air like a storm dissolving after the rain. Her body trembled, weakened from the effort, but her gaze was calm. She turned to the soldier, her voice soft. I have destroyed so much, but today I did not. And it is because of you. He met her eyes, his lips curling into the faintest smile, despite his pain. No, he said, it is because of you you chose it, not me. The galaxy had witnessed something it never believed possible. The destroyer of worlds had spared her enemies. Not by weakness, not by chance, but by choice. And at her side, one fragile human had reminded her that even the most feared power in the universe could change. The battle was not truly over. The fleets were still above, the galaxy still against her. But something greater had begun, a war not of weapons, but of truth. And in that war, she was no longer fighting alone. The battlefield was quiet after the storm. The fleets had stopped firing, their weapons cold, their commanders silent. For the first time in centuries, the alien woman had spared her enemies. And the galaxy did not know how to understand what it had seen. The soldier stood at her side, his body weak, but his eyes alive. He had seen what no one else had. Her choice, her control, her mercy, and in that moment, he believed the galaxy could change. But the galaxy was not ready, not yet. Among the fleets above, not all commanders accepted what they saw. Some saw mercy as weakness, some saw restraint as danger. And in their fear, they plotted. If she can control her power, one whispered, then she can lead. If she can lead, the galaxy will follow. We cannot allow this. So they made a plan, not to destroy her, but to strike where she was vulnerable. They had seen the human, the fragile soldier who stood beside her without fear. They had seen the way her eyes softened when he spoke. They knew now what even she did not fully admit. He was her weakness. When the night came, shadows fell over the battlefield. Broken machines and shattered ships glowed faintly under the dying fires. The soldier rested against the ruins, his wounds heavy, his body nearly failing. The alien woman kept watch, her gaze sharp, her power humming around them like a protective storm. For the first time in 1,000 years, she felt something almost like peace. But peace was fragile, and peace was what they would strike. Silent pods descended from the fleets above, hidden in the smoke of the night. Elite soldiers stepped out, cloaked in armor, their weapons designed not to kill her, but to distract. Their true target was the human. While she turned to face them, they moved like shadows, swift and merciless. The human fought as best as his broken body allowed, but he was only one man against many. They struck him down, chains snapping around his arms, energy locks burning against his skin. He shouted her name, his voice echoing through the ruins. She turned, her eyes glowing bright, and the air shook with her rage. In that instant, the fleets above waited. They wanted her fury, they wanted her rage to explode. They wanted her to prove herself the monster they always claimed. And for a heartbeat, it almost happened. Her power surged like a storm ready to burn everything. The soldiers who chained him trembled, knowing they would be the first to die. But then she stopped. Her glowing eyes fell on the human, his body weak, his voice calling to her. "Don't give them what they want," he gasped. "Don't let them turn you back into what you are not." Her heart thundered, her power screamed for release. But his words cut deeper than chains. For centuries, she had been forced, pushed, and hunted. But now, with him, she had a choice. And she chose not to be their weapon. She lifted her hands, not to destroy, but to bend. The air crackled as she pulled the chains apart, not with fire, but with control. The soldiers fell back, their weapons useless against her will. The human stumbled free, his body collapsing into her arms. She caught him gently, her power fading around them. Above, the commanders cursed. "She refuses again," they shouted. "She will not kill. She will not destroy. She is dangerous, more dangerous than before. Because she is changing." The fleets pulled back, their shadows retreating into the stars. They had failed to break her, failed to twist her into fury. But they would not stop. They would come again, with new traps, with sharper weapons. Because the galaxy feared not her rage, but her mercy. She looked down at the soldier in her arms, his breathing shallow, his eyes heavy with pain. "You risked everything for me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You should not have." His lips curved into a faint smile, though his strength was fading. "I would do it again," he said softly, "because you are worth it." Her chest tightened, her heart aching in a way she thought impossible. No one had ever said such words to her. No one had ever believed in her, not like this. She had carried chains for centuries, chains forged by fear, by hate, by sorrow. But now, for the first time, someone had given her something stronger than chains. Loyalty. She held him close, her glowing eyes dimming as she whispered, "They will not take you from me, not while I still stand." And in that vow, her power steadied, not as rage, but as promise. The galaxy had tried to chain her with fear, but now she had chosen her own chain. Not a burden, but a bond. The bond of loyalty between a soldier and the most feared woman in the stars. The night after the battle stretched long and silent. The fires on the ruined battlefield burned low, casting faint light on broken machines and shattered ships. The alien woman stood watch, her glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. Beside her, the human soldier rested, his body weak, his wounds deep, but his spirit unbroken. She had saved him from chains, and he had saved her from rage. Together, they had done what the galaxy believed impossible. She had chosen mercy, she had chosen control, and he had chosen to stand with her. In that choice, something greater was born. Above, the fleets did not return. The commanders whispered in fear, their voices sharp with confusion. They could not accept what they had seen, the destroyer of worlds sparing her enemies, the human defying their will. It was a story that spread faster than light, carried on every channel, whispered in every corner of the galaxy. Some laughed at it, saying it was a trick. Some cursed it, saying it was a danger worse than war. But some listened, their hearts stirred by a truth they had never dared believe. That power could be more than fear. that even the most dangerous being in the galaxy could change. The alien woman felt the weight of their eyes upon her, even from across the stars. For centuries, she had carried only one title, Destroyer. But now, with a human beside her, a new title began to form, Protector. The soldier awoke slowly, his breathing shallow, his strength nearly gone. When he saw her still watching over him, he smiled faintly. "You didn't leave," he whispered, his voice weak. "I told you," she said softly. "I will not let them take you from me." He closed his eyes, his heart steady even as pain burned through him. "You gave them a new story," he said, "and you gave me a reason to believe." Her chest tightened, and she felt something she had not known for centuries. Not fear, not sorrow, not rage, but belonging. In this fragile soldier, she had found a one thing she had been denied, someone who saw her as more than her chains. Word spread quickly through the outer colonies. Rumors of the human who stood beside the destroyer. Rumors of the alien woman who chose mercy. Entire worlds whispered their names, and for the first time, not with hate, but with wonder. The fleets tried to crush the story, tried to silence it, but it was too late. The truth had taken root, stronger than any weapon. The galaxy could no longer see her only as a nightmare. Now they saw her as a question. What if she was not what they feared? What if she was something greater? The alien woman stood tall on the battlefield, the human leaning weakly against her. She looked up at the stars, the endless sky filled with shadows of fleets, empires, and rulers. "They will never stop hunting me," she said, her voice calm but certain. The soldier nodded slowly. "Then let them hunt," he answered, "because they will never break what you have chosen to be." Her eyes glowed softly, no longer a fire of destruction, but a light of resolve. She had been bound for centuries by chains forged of fear. But now, she was bound by something stronger than fear. By trust, by loyalty, by choice. Together, they stepped forward, leaving the battlefield behind. Not as destroyer and victim, not as monster and soldier, but as two beings who had defied the weight of the galaxy itself. The legend began that night, whispered in the dark corners of space. The galaxy feared her power, but one human dared to stand beside her. And in that choice, he gave her back what the universe had stolen, her freedom. From then on, when they spoke her name, they did not whisper only in fear. They spoke it with awe, with respect, with hope, because the galaxy had learned a truth it could never forget, that even the most feared power could change, that even the loneliest heart could find a bond, and that sometimes it took only one human to remind the stars that even in the darkest void, there could still be light.